is called Sinking the Ark, Secular Activism in Action, and it is about this man. For those that don't know, which most of you probably do, Ken Ham is the CEO of Answers in Genesis. He runs the Creation Museum. He is the village idiot. And he wants to build a really big boat in the middle of Kentucky, where you would naturally build a boat. So my story with Ken starts in 2014 when he announced that he was going to debate Bill Nye. And I thought that was a really bad idea. And I reached out to the Dawkins Foundation and said, I kind of want to write a piece about why I think this is bad, the ramifications of it. So I did. Not really thinking it would be as big as it was. It kind of exploded, and Ken Ham took note. And his very first slide in the entire debate was this. And he tried to use it as evidence that we were scared. Not that we didn't want him to get notoriety and money, which he did, but he really wanted to kind of point out that, we're worried about it. But that sort of started a nice little relationship between me and him that no longer exists. Because he then announced, but then it kind of ramped up this project, which is his Ark Encounter. It seems weird to me that you would build a theme park based upon a genocide. It doesn't make much sense. I'll let you read it. I wonder if the boat will have a moat around it with floating bodies or anything like that. I do know it's full of the worst fake animals I've ever seen, because they've blogged a few of the photos. They're not using any real live animals in there, thankfully, but the fake ones they're using are hilarious. I shouldn't call them animals, I should call them kinds, because that's what Ken calls them, because they, of course, didn't devolve, but you can't put every species of rhino on a boat. But building an ark this big isn't cheap. You need a lot of money. Something like $30 million he's asking for to build this thing. And when your beliefs are as fringe as Ken Ham's, which even in the creationist movement, his particular beliefs aren't that common. He's very fringe and he's very kind of on the outside. So he doesn't have that big of a donor base. So he's really struggling to raise the money he needs for this. And so it makes you think, what's the best way to raise money for a genocidal theme park? It's tax money. You ask the state to pay for it. And so he did that. They formed an LLC, the Ark Encounter, as a for-profit business, and then took advantage of something called this Kentucky Tourism Tax Incentive, where you can build like a theme park or the racetrack they built, and then you can apply to get a certain amount of money refunded to you on your sales tax. And it helps you expand and grow. And it's a great tourism aspect in the sense that you are now bringing lots of money in, so they're going to give you more money back so you can keep growing and bringing more money into the state. They got preliminarily approved for such a thing, and they got told they could have $18 million back. Originally, they were told they could have $73 million back, but they were never able to raise enough money to even drive a truck onto the land to break ground. So they lost that, had to scale the project down. But you have to prove to the state that you're worth it. So Ken had to come up with a plan. Here's how we're going to do it. So he hired his very best friend and co-author of 2 books that also owns a sort of surveying company to estimate how many people will come to the park a year. I don't know if you know much about the Creation Museum, but they get maybe 400,000 people a year on a really good year. It's usually pretty low, and they're financially in the red. How they stay open is beyond most people. Phil Ferguson, who's here, has done some really great reporting on that, so if you haven't looked it up, I would encourage you to do that. But his friend said, well, we envision 2 to 4 million people a year are going to want to travel to come see this big, giant boat. That's not quite the case. Because the state had preliminarily approved this, they had to get full approval by having their own audit done. So they did, and they hired a place called Hunt and Strategic out of Chicago, who specializes in theme parks and big attractions, where this other place that Ken Ham hired specializes in strip malls and things like that. So they did an estimate, and they checked out that they would probably get 350,000 people the very first year, with the continuous decline after that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't get the tax credit, because it's not based on just the simple fact that you make a lot of money. If you make money and you're bringing tourists in, you can get a smaller amount possibly. Maybe they don't get 18 million. But leave it to Ken Ham to want to break the law a little bit and start posting for jobs. And when he posted for jobs from the Ark Encounter LLC for-profit business, they said, you have to sign a statement of faith that you 100% believe in everything we believe in. That seemed a little off to me. This is not quite legal. You can't be a for-profit business and then say, but to work here you have to abide by every single thing I believe only, unless you're Hobby Lobby. So I wanted to test this. So I had a friend on Twitter who said, you know what, I meet the qualifications of a CAD designer. I have a degree. I'm going to apply for this job. And he applied, and he sent me every single email that corresponded. And it was, great, we love you for this job, but we'd like to bring you in, but you need to sign these papers before we'll have you come in. And they were statements that you believe in creationism, and not just any sort of creationism, but their specific 7-day young Earth creationism. And I just didn't quite think that was a good idea. That didn't jive with me. So I contacted Americans United and talked to them about it, and they were like, yeah, you know, there's a problem here. We're gonna start looking at this. And then I tweeted to Ken Ham, a little long shot, and I said, great job stealing $18 million from Kentucky taxpayers. And lo and behold, I had an entire article written about me by Ken Ham and how I'm evil, anti-Christian, you know, and I want to villainize and demonize Christians in the US. But that kind of made me mad, so I kind of, I bit back. I had somehow gotten this guy's attention and figured, why not? So I was actually just starting my Patheos blog then, and I contacted them and said, can we get this thing up right away? I have a big thing happening. They were very great, got my blog up. I was able to kind of publish my tweets back and forth with him, and something really great happened. He announced on Twitter that he was going on a radio show to talk about this. And I called 32 times in a row until I got through. And I'm determined. You can't stop me. And I got the guy, they answered, and they said, oh, who are you? And I said, should I lie? Am I gonna get through? Am I ever gonna get on the air if I'm honest? But then I said, if I lie and I get on, I just gave them ammo. You lied to us. Atheists are bad liars, they're terrible people. So I said, oh, my name's Dan Arel, and he's talking about me right now on the radio. And they said, please hold. So I waited for the click, and it didn't come. And all of a sudden, it's, hi, you're on the air with so-and-so and Ken Ham. And it was I should state, this was a conservative Christian talk radio show. So it wasn't like I had no one on my side. So I said, you know, you shouldn't get this money, you're taking, he kept arguing he wasn't taking money because it was a rebate from tax funds. And I was like, yeah, but that's $18 million. I could go to schools and roads and parks. He didn't see it that way, so I said, well, then why are you breaking the law by requiring people to sign a statement of faith when you're hiring? Ken Ham said, we're not hiring, and that's when the click came. And that's when they continued to talk about me for a few minutes when I was not on the other line. So I continued blogging, showing all the screenshots from the jobs that my friend had applied for, the screenshots from the job posting that clearly said, Ark Encounter CAD Designer. It's a little clear cut. I screenshotted everything I had, and I sent it to Americans United. And they drafted a really awesome letter to Governor Steve Beshear in Kentucky, and sent it to him. And we didn't hear anything back. And we didn't expect to. We didn't know what was going to happen. Freedom from Religion got involved. Some other groups were kind of sending letters, and it got picked up a bit more by the national media. And then one day, this showed up. And I hope you can read it, but it says, to all our intolerant liberal friends, thank God you can't sink this ship. Well, number one, the ship is in Kentucky and it's landlocked. So I have a really hard time sinking it. But I kind of thought this was really, really kind of cocky of him to really kind of stick it to us like this. But then it kind of made me feel good because I remembered that I'm one guy. I make a fair living. He's rich, and he's a CEO of a company, and I am taking up hours of his time. Hours. And then, almost like there was a God, almost a couple days later, I got to write the best headline I think I've written to date. And that was this. Governor Steve Beshear and the Tourism Tax Board reviewed the letter we sent them, and they actually did their work. And they said, number one, you cannot discriminate against employees based on their religious beliefs and then expect the state to give you money. You're breaking both federal and state laws. And they said, number two, they noticed throughout the entire website, Ken consistently referred to the Ark Encounter as a ministry, not as a theme park. And they said, you know what, we get you're building an ark. There's nothing secretive about this. But if you're going to call it a ministry and treat it like a church, you can't have tax money to do this. So I got this in my email from the kind folks at Americans United, and we've posted this everywhere. We sunk your battleship. And so now Ken Ham believes today that he lost the tax incentive because suddenly, out of nowhere, the state realized the Ark Encounter was a religious park. I don't understand where he would think the state would ever be confused that the Ark Encounter, Noah's Ark, from the Bible, would possibly be anything but a religious attraction. And he has now since sued the state. It's gone to court. Americans United is trying to intervene. I'm doing everything I can to intervene. They've made their arguments. They're telling everybody that this is Christian persecution. This is the direction that the park is going. But he is defiant that the park will still be built. And I'm torn there because he's free to build a gigantic wooden boat if he pleases. I don't want people to go. I will campaign to make sure kids aren't brought there to be taught this horrible bullshit. But if he wants to waste perfectly good money that could be used elsewhere to build a giant boat that no one's going to visit, and that eventually we're going to be left with this giant abandoned boat in the middle of Kentucky, with the hopes that maybe it floods and we get to use it. On that note, I didn't write this in here, but a lot of people pointed out that he's building an ark to prove that it can be done. But he's using cranes, cement, and heavy machinery, CAD designers, all this. So it's a pretty persistent question people ask him on Twitter. I've asked him until recently when I called him a name of some sort. Probably not something I should say here. I got blocked. I should say, once he lost the money, he stopped talking to me. And so I kind of just took that as I can say anything I want. It doesn't matter anymore. So he wrote a big thing like combating secular arguments for the park. And they were all pretty generic. But when he got to, why are you using cranes and CAD designers and computers and all this, his answer is amazing. We do not know the technology that Noah had before the flood. So we cannot prove that he didn't actually already have computers or CAD designers because it's all been wiped out. Yes. It's a step up from the rock giants in the actual Noah's Ark movie that came out, but I would think that there was probably more likelihood that rock giants built the boat than that Noah had computers and CAD designers. It just seems a little strange. But that's the point I want to make, is that like I said, I'm just a guy that works and writes. And too many times as activists or as people that care about secular causes, we see something happening and we say, I wish someone would do something about that. Or I hope someone takes care of that. Well, I think back now, what would have happened if I saw the Ark Encounter money and said, I hope Americans United takes care of that. And I didn't send that first tweet. And I didn't engage him. And I didn't gather information and send it to Americans United. He could be building an Ark right now with $18 million of taxpayer money. And I want everyone to always think this way. When you see that your local city council is refusing to let humanists give secular invocations, speak up. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. And there's no target that's too big or too small. Don't be afraid of going after the giants. Ken Ham has way more money than I'm ever going to have. Look at the damage I did. Look at the time I took. I like to think of like the little salary pieces of him I took away from telling kids about creationism, where he was angrily blogging about me. That's great. And I like to think of Ken Ham sitting in his office mad at me. I just like the idea. It makes me feel good. But I didn't need money. I didn't need money to take down Ken Ham. Ken Ham had all the money to take me down, and he couldn't touch me. And we can all do this, and I encourage everyone just to please continue. Don't just, it is great to share the Facebook post and to encourage people to be involved, but don't be afraid to actually do it as well. Don't think that your voice doesn't matter, because it does. And don't think that if you email someone like Americans United that they're going to ignore you because they don't know your name, because they won't. They care. These organizations really want to make a difference, and they're there to help you. So if you see a target that's too big for you, you think, email them. Reach out. Reach out to me. Reach out to other activists. Tell them there's a story somewhere, because we'll write about it. We care about this as well. I don't care if it's a story happening in your small town that I've never heard of. If I can bring you publicity and get something taken care of, I'm there. And I know that other writers that write on Patheos and for many other websites feel the same way. So that's kind of what I want to accomplish here. And then before I go, I am going to plug my book. It is outside. I will be signing copies. Shannon Nebo, if you saw her talk earlier, she talked about parenting. She actually wrote a part of this book with me, and she's going to be at the table as well. So if you'd like to meet her and talk parenting. The book did really well, so if I can encourage you to buy it by saying it's an Amazon bestseller. It's a Barnes & Noble bestseller. The Friendly Atheist recommended it as one of the best atheist books of the year. If you'd like to know more about me, it's danarel.com. You can follow me on Twitter at danarel, and I hope people have some questions related to either the Ark Encounter or secular activism in general, because I don't know how much time I have, but I probably have enough time for questions.
Test.
Hi. I actually have a parenting question.
Sure.
I'm in the process of my deconversion, and I started out parenting as a good Catholic, but having some hesitation. I never wanted to use guilt or anything. And now that I've lost my faith, I'm trying to segue, but my kids are kind of in a hodgepodge middle of, we might believe, I don't know. How do you navigate that? Do you have any advice?
Be honest with yourself. Don't kind of have a preconceived notion that you have to end up believing or not. Just let it kind of happen. Really question everything you've ever thought you believed. One of the best things you can do is figure out why you believe something particularly. So if I believe Jesus rose from the dead, well, why do I believe that? Well, do I believe that because I was told that's true? Or do I believe that because I honestly think it's true and here's the evidence why? I think you're doing the right thing by already questioning what you believe. I hope you can continue, but I don't have the best advice. My deconversion was like that.
No, I mean for the kids.
For the kids?
I've already quit believing what I taught them in the beginning.
Be honest with them. Be very honest with them. Don't try to shield them from it. It might feel more natural to not just throw it on them, because it's going to be upsetting possibly, depending on their level of belief and how strongly they've clung to it. But if you kind of walk them through your process, be honest with them while you know how you went through it. And even now, if you have struggles and new things you're going through, talk to them about it. But let them know they can still come to you with questions. And you're open to it. So if they come to you and say, how can you not believe because X? Have a conversation. And don't be afraid to even say, I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm lucky in the fact that I've never had to quite go through that sort of scenario, so I might not be the best person in deconverting while having kids. I'm lucky enough to have kids already being an atheist.
If anybody else knows, catch me outside.
Yeah, and if anybody else does have advice, please let her know, because some people can be smarter than me. Most people.
Hi, and thank you. So I didn't want Bill to debate Ken Ham either, because I viewed it as a win-win. And as it turns out, you know, I don't think Bill did a bad job at all. And outside of presidential debates, it's probably the most watched debate in history, which makes me happy and sad.
Right.
Do we have any way of knowing exactly or approximately how much they profited from this? They were, you know, I remember they were like on the verge of bankruptcy for this sort of thing, and then the debate happens and all of a sudden everything's fine again. Do we know how much and for how long before this thing completely sinks?
We don't know the exact number that came pouring in after the debate. It was quite a lot. It was in the millions. They were pretty excited about it. They didn't release numbers. They don't have to, they're not going to. Well, they have to, but they did a lot of marketing right after. They sold the DVD, and they somehow got the rights to the DVD, which I thought was a huge mistake. But yeah, they got a lot of press immediately. He started plugging the ARC right away, and donations flooded in, and that's when they went straight to the tax incentive, because they had the money to break ground, which was something they had to do within the year of being approved. And so it was definitely a substantial amount. We don't know exactly how much, or I don't know exactly how much. It's already in the red, which is kind of funny. The entire organization is just hemorrhaging money at an insane rate. So if he can't hit his 1 to 2 million or 2 to 4 million visits in that first year, I don't think it's going to last much longer than that first year. I'm not sure. I can't, because I would have said the same about the Creation Museum. It's somehow sustained even while it's losing money. And like I said, Phil Ferguson actually did. You know, he's the money guy. He really tore apart their finances, and it was eye-opening to see how much money they were just pouring out, and why they're putting it into some boat that no one wants to see. I don't know.
If there are other questions, I can come to you with the microphone. Anybody have questions?
Come on. There's one.
Hi, you mentioned that Ken Ham couldn't touch you, but weren't you afraid of getting sued at all?
No, not really, because I didn't think I was doing anything illegal. I wasn't lying. I wasn't publishing things that were private. I got worried that he might threaten me with a lawsuit. I could see that being a tactic, but there's nothing illegal about speaking my mind. There's nothing illegal about saying what I think you're doing is wrong and highlighting why I think so. You know, if I would have tried to attack him or, you know, things like that, but I stayed away from it. I poked fun at him, but I stayed on topic, and there's nothing wrong. You know, I have free speech to say I think your boat is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And yeah, so I never really got too worried about it. Once in a while, it kind of crossed my mind, like, you know, if I publish this, it will be okay. But at the same time, Americans United was there. I would send them something I had and said, is this okay? Can I say this? Can I say that this is illegal? Because if it's not illegal, I don't want to say it is. So no, I never really felt so, because I also felt I had people who had my back. And so if he did sue me, I probably would have been kind of happy about it, because I think I would have been able to raise the money I would need to fight that. And at the same time, I think it would have brought really great attention to it. You know, oh, look, this guy is suing this atheist from San Diego. He must really be scared of what's happening. So I would have welcomed it, but it didn't happen.
Any other questions? Yes, over here.
So the debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye, was that Ken Ham's idea to begin with?
Yeah, so Bill Nye did a video for, I think it was Big Think or one of those sites, where he talked about how creationism should not be taught to children. And sort of equated to child abuse, and but more or less talked about how it's damaging to the future of our nation. And, you're going to squander engineers and future scientists. And Ken got really mad about that and approached him and offered to debate him. And I think Nye kind of saw it as an opportunity to push a pro-science.
Because I was wondering if, I also hate that they got rights to the DVD and that they're making money over this. But I was wondering if he had gotten the idea that, hey, I can make money by debating someone, getting publicity, maybe, it's a plus that Bill Nye accepted, because he might have just gone for others and not got someone as competent, until he got someone to debate him. If once he got the idea in his head, hey, this can get me publicity, hey, I can look like a victim, hey, I can ask for money. So, even though I hate that they made money off of it, I'm sort of two minds about if he was going to debate somebody, I'm glad it was somebody who was a good opponent.
Yeah, I'm happy with somebody that could kind of hold his own and was able to combat his arguments. But yeah, I kind of felt, I think if it was somebody else, he probably wouldn't have pulled someone as big as Bill Nye, and it wouldn't have got the 3 million views it got right away. Because creationists debate atheists and scientists all the time, and sometimes I'm sure creationists win when they debate people that just aren't qualified to debate. But yeah, I was upset that they did it at the Creation Museum, because I felt it was the wrong setting. It needed to be somewhere neutral. I was really mad that Bill even agreed to do the rights to the DVD. Ken Ham's now published a book called The Debate or something like that. I got mentioned. And so he's making lots of money off this. Even if it's not direct to the Ark Encounter, he's making money off it because he wrote a book, they got the DVD sales. And I think...
Did he ever say anything about why he agreed to those conditions?
He did. He was really, I think, and it's honorable, I think he thought he's had a great opportunity to talk about science and to show science to people that probably would have ignored science. And he did. He did reach a really big creationist audience and got a chance to talk about it. He seemed drier than normal, which kind of was kind of a bummer to me. I thought Bill Nye's a little bit more charismatic than he appeared to be in the debate. But I think in the end, he won really big, not because of the debate itself, but that very last question, when someone asked, what will change your mind? And Ken Ham said, there's nothing that can change my mind. And, Bill Nye leaned in and said, evidence. And that was it. I tweeted that immediate second, that's what won that debate. And I think that was all it was. And so I do think there is a positive. I don't think it's all bad. But Ken Ham reaped, I think, too many benefits of it, and that will forever bother me. But I think there's very few ways he did reach creationists. I wish we could find a way to see if anybody's mind was changed the other direction. It would be cool to see if that happened. It didn't happen that night, I'm assuming, but maybe he could plant those seeds, and maybe 10 people went home and said, wow, those are good arguments, and that doubt grows and festers, and then you wind up with really smart people that don't believe the Earth is 6,000 years old.
Other questions?
Anybody else?
We have just a few minutes, probably 2 more questions if there are any.
Quite so much a question. I'm still processing the fact that you, a single guy, awesome as you are, just like one of us in this room, cost him literally millions and millions of dollars, broke his favorite toy, and made him so unhappy, and that makes me so very happy and grateful to you.
Yeah, I have personally met people who have had their minds changed because of that debate. So
awesome.
It was worth it.
That's great to hear.
I was just going to ask, considering the decline of fundamentalism in America, do you think you could guesstimate, exactly how much longer it'll be a significant portion of the Christian population?
I'm not smart enough to guess that. I've read studies that have said things like 2040, 2050, that when Christianity will be more of a minority group. They're kind of hypotheticals. There is a massive decline. The thing is I'm not as interested in hoping that Christianity becomes a minority group. I'm more interested that it becomes not a force, that it becomes equal to everybody else. Because right now, Christians have privilege in this country. And they're so afraid of losing it. That's what they're fighting for. They can be the majority all they want if they're at our playing field. If they don't get to dictate laws, if they don't get to demand that we believe what they believe. You know, if people like Kim Davis are taken out of their job because of reasons like this, you know, they just need to be brought down to our level. I'm not looking to turn people into atheists. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's a natural decline. Christianity is going to become a minority, but I think our focus shouldn't be on making atheists. It should be on just fighting for equal rights for everybody and making sure that they lose that privilege that they're touting right now.